This is DW News Africa. Coming up on the program, Donald Trump's administration has released its national security strategy. Africa is in there, but with just 3 paragraphs at the end of 33 pages, the approach feels more like a footnote than a display of foresight. Analysis ahead on whether that's good or bad for the continent. Also coming up, there seems to be no end in sight to the mass abductions by criminal gangs in Nigeria. Some communities have even resorted to paying the bandits so they can at least keep their families whole.
But people worry about what will happen if the deals don't hold. They have little faith that the government will be able to protect them and solve the problem anytime soon.
Also on the program, Bambara is Mali's most widely spoken language, one of the 13 official tongues in the West African country. But the colonial language French is everywhere. Now a startup wants to put Bambara back into Mali's classrooms. Welcome to DW News Africa. I'm Michael Oku. The Trump administration has released its national security strategy, a document that outlines the U.S.'s foreign policy and security concerns. Highly anticipated around the world, the 33-page document afforded Africa 3 paragraphs at the very end. The resounding message, a shift from aid to trade. The report also suggests that the U.S. will no longer spread liberal ideology in Africa. It then goes on to talk about mutually beneficial trade relationships and harnessing Africa's abundant natural resources. Here's a snippet of the report that captures the gist. The United States should transition from an aid-focused relationship with Africa to a trade and investment-focused relationship, favoring partnerships with capable, reliable states committed to opening their markets to U.S. goods and services. What does this mean for future relations between the U.S. and African nations? Let's break this down with political analyst Rama Yad. She is Senior Director at the Atlantic Council's Africa Center in Washington, D.C., and of course joins us now. Yama, 3 paragraphs on U.S.'s Africa policy at the very end of the report. Some might say 3 short paragraphs. Did it surprise you?
Not really, just because Africa has never been a high-level priority in the U.S. foreign policy, whether on the Republican side or on the Democrat side. Remember during the campaign between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, there was nothing about Africa, so not surprising. Secondly, I do believe that the content may be seen more positively than the European strategy, which upsets Europeans a lot. So, and it's much longer than the African content of this national strategy. So it's not a matter of size. It's more a matter of content. And what I see from the content is a major shift, at least in the words, on trade. Trade, not aid, is the major angle of the new Trump U.S. policy to Africa. I think that's the most important, with a big focus on critical minerals.
I'm going to give you a moment to talk about that in greater detail. The report begins with the words, "For far too long, American policy in Africa has focused on providing and later on spreading liberal ideology." What does that mean, and what do you make of that?
This is not new either, because this liberal ideology was already blamed in the Project 2025. You remember this program comes from conservative think tanks in DC. They inspired Donald Trump's campaign a year ago, 1 year ago. And you could find in this note that the LGBT issues have no place in the U.S. foreign policy. And actually, to be very frank with you, it may resonate in the African continent because there has been many African leaders, presidents, including in democratic countries, who complain about the liberal ideology, and which is some kind of conditionality in the economic relations with the United States. So I guess there is some relief in some African city capitals to when they read about the liberal ideology in this report.
By many accounts, the report conveys a very transactional tone. At least one journalist criticized it for using neo-colonial logic. How do you perceive that?
You know, I don't think it's about the trade not aid policy. Because that was expected from Africans. I think Africans were really tired of assistance and don't want to be seen as victims, but as actors. And the assistance policy was all the more challenging for Africans as it was Africa was presented as the main receiver of the US funding, which is not the case because it's Ukraine, Israel and Jordan these past decades. And also assistance has never been able to fix anything in terms of development, you know. So many African countries and more specifically business leaders were expecting this shift towards trade, commerce and business rather than assistance or aid. Maybe the condescending part come from the way the United States plan to exploit the critical minerals in Africa. The United States should differentiate themselves from China and its predatory behavior when it comes to critical minerals in Africa. Africans expect creation of value, job creation on their soil, not just take the minerals and export the jobs related to them, right? So it's very important because that is what is missing in the new national security strategy to use this word industrial transformation. That is what is missing in this document right now.
And I realize I'm asking you to generalize a little bit, but do you believe that African nations would see the United States as a partner in good faith when it comes to Africa getting its side of the transaction?
This is a tough question, Michael. I would say that it could be the only way from the United States to catch up or to do more and better on the African continent. Because I just like to remind you that when you compare with China, the volume of trade with China is 5 times higher than the volume of trade with the United States. It's been 20 years now that Chinese have been heavily investing in Africa, and not only in infrastructure, it's very well documented, but also in everything else, in energy, in renewable energy, in defense industry, in maritime space, in creative industries, in media, entertainment issues, etc. So it's very important for the United States to be aware of that strong shift from the Chinese side and to catch up, because they are far behind, and not only China but also the other regional powers. It's India, it's Turkey. It's Saudi Arabia that is investing more and more. Qatar hosted the peace talks of DRC Rwanda. It's not innocent. And also the Emiratis are becoming the first investor in Africa right now. So there's a lot of competition on this ground. Africans have a lot of options. I just a reminder, Africa is doubling its population in the next 30 years. That means the average age in Africa is like 17-year-old. There's young people everywhere. And these young people need jobs if they remain unemployed or jobless, they will attack the institutions. So whether you come from a democratic or authoritarian country, all the leaders in Africa are perfectly aware of that pressure.
A few days ago, as you well know, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda signed a U.S. brokered peace deal that enables the U.S. to access the region's critical minerals and rare earths. Do you see this as the model or the U.S.'s approach with African nations going forward?
That's right, that the business is an important driver for this administration, as we can see it in the DRC. But there is also another model, which is more security related, the fight against terrorism. This is also a powerful driver for the US policy to Africa. And actually, this is how it started, because 10 days after he got back to the office, to the White House, President Trump bombed Somalia, where a leader of ISIS was hiding. And you know that many hotspots in Africa are very dangerous when it comes to fight against terrorism. For example, the Sahel. It has been documented these past weeks that the JNIM, which is an Al-Qaeda branch, is very close to Bamako in Mali, which is the heart of this area under pressure of terrorist groups. So it's very possible that the United States would like to develop a policy to Africa focused on fight against terrorism. Deals, yes, that's right, in some places where there's some interest, but it's also a matter of national security for the United States to intervene in regions like Sahel or Somalia, where terrorist groups are very important.
Again, the U.S.'s strategy is a clear shift from aid to trade. Walk us through what diminished aid means for people on the ground.
Of course, when the US ID has been shut down on July, many NGOs testified that it is a tragedy for countries like Sudan or the DRC. Food, medicines were blocked in ports and could not be delivered to the refugees on the ground. That's all true. But I must also say that in the other parts of the African continent, the missing funding has been replaced very quickly. In my conversations with many African leaders, ministers, chief of staff of presidents, etc., that's what they said. We lost millions from the United States partnerships, but we have been able to mobilize our own national budget to cover the missing fundings. So that means something. That means that Africans were ready to move on, to move from assistance. Assistance does not develop anything.
Rama, as we've said, 3 paragraphs for a massive continent are quite little. What are some of the important issues that the report doesn't address?
I think it's, the words we would have expected to see here are industrial transformation, creation of value on the African soil, job creation on the African soil. This is what is missing. It's not too late, because the business deals that are mentioned in the report can be transformed into something more impactful from the African perspective. But it's not an African document. It's an American vision, and it's perfectly normal that an American document prioritizes American interests. So this is not something I cannot ignore, but it will be now up to African nations to say their expectations and what they expect from the U.S. side in these transactions.
Ramayad with the Atlantic Council's Africa Center. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Weeks after the latest round of abductions in Nigeria, where armed men snatch hundreds of students from a Catholic school in Niger State, some have been released, but most of them are still in captivity. The attacks have become a grim routine across parts of northern Nigeria, where jihadists and criminal gangs operate with near impunity. Now, with security forces stretched thin and trust in the state at a breaking point, some communities are taking matters into their own hands by directly negotiating with the very gangs that terrorize them. DW's West Africa correspondent Azizat Olaoluwa reports from Katsina, where residents are paying for peace.
Crime pays. At least that's what these videos seem to suggest. Men claiming to be members of criminal gangs, bragging about the money they have made following a series of kidnappings in northern Nigeria. We haven't been able to verify them independently, but the videos have been doing the rounds on social media and caused outrage in Nigeria, a country where paying ransom is illegal. The latest incidents to shock the world were the abductions of hundreds of school children from two schools in Kebbi and Niger states. The government has since announced the release of some of those students. No arrests were made, and it's unclear how those releases were secured.
Most of the bandits are known, their families are known, their towns are known, their enclaves are known.
These are not isolated incidents. Many communities in the region have found themselves forced to make peace deals with criminals like these armed men attending a peace negotiation in a Katsina community. Abdurrahman Abdullahi escaped a kidnapping attack 3 years ago. He says he's felt more at ease since his local government reached an agreement with the gangs.
Before this peace deal, I can't remember when last I slept before 2 a.m. Whichever approach can yield to positive and sustainable result is welcome. The most important thing is to have peace in our society so that people can go back to their normal life.
Several communities in at least 4 states in the northwest have made similar pacts with local criminal groups. Some agreed to give the bandits free access to markets, water and clinics, while also paying for protection. In return, they are left in peace and those kidnapped are released. Despite official involvement in these deals, the governments in affected states like Kaduna deny they have negotiated directly with the gangs.
The Kaduna state government, either the governor or any of his senior official or representative, did not sit down with any bandit. We don't know any bandits. No amount of money was given to any bandit. After achieving this peace deal, anybody that breaches that provision of the law will also be punished. So it's not saying, okay, you have done what the atrocities that you have done, you are free to walk back to the society. No.
But people worry about what will happen if the deals don't hold. They have little faith that the government will be able to protect them and solve the problem anytime soon.
It's a national embarrassment. What they are telling the world is say government is not capable, except that maybe government is still looking them as inconsequential, But the psychological impact is creating on people and the world at large is why government must now intervene and quieten and stop that act in its finality.
The government has appointed a new Minister of Defense and is now recruiting more security personnel. For now, the residents of affected communities like Abdurrahman hope that these criminals will stick to the terms of their peace agreement.
Joining us now, Azizat Olaoluwa, the correspondent, of course, who filed that piece. Azizat, no doubt people who just watched your report will agree with its very first line. Crime does indeed pay. Are there really no other options than to pay bandits for their crimes?
Well, that's what residents of affected communities in northwestern Nigeria are saying, and that was that was what forced them into negotiating with criminals. I will let you know that Nigeria has less than 1 million of security personnel, both in the police and in the military. And the police that is supposed to be in charge of internal security appears to be outnumbered by or overwhelmed, so to speak. And we understand that close to 100,000 of police officers were assigned to VIPs and celebrities over the years. And President Bola Tinubu had to recall them just a few weeks ago that all hands must be on deck to resolve this insecurity across the country.
Talk to us about the climate there, the anxiety. How difficult was it to report this story?
I mean, it was really difficult. In fact, we decided not to travel down to northwest Nigeria to do this story. We had to liaise with freelancers over there and a colleague in the House of Service to be able to get footages for us to use for this package, because we understand many states in northwestern Nigeria, at least 4 states have made the deal for you to know how widespread the insecurity is, and many states are on the red alerts, really. And even the state governors now are coming out to say that something has to be done both at the state and national level. So imagine how dangerous it would be for journalists to go into communities, because most of the time the affected areas are communities that are very far from the city centers of northwestern Nigeria. So it wasn't really a decision that we considered, for the safety of the crew.
Viewers will be struck by the fact that the bandits are known to everyone, who they are, where they live, their families, and yet nothing happens to them. I can't help but liken this to mafia-run communities where lawlessness is normalized.
I mean, that is what security analysts are saying, that how could the government allow this to happen, that it is an embarrassment to Nigeria, and it's like you are legitimizing criminality, so to speak, because when non-state actors boldly move around in communities and the residents there look in fear, they're scampering for safety because they are powerless, they feel unprotected. What does that tell you about the security of the country? And many people are very angry about what is happening, and they are saying the government needs to act and act now. The person we spoke to is a resident of Katsina State and also an activist, said that he and his other activists constantly, told the government that they know where to find these people because they always come to the community. Some of them grew up in their communities, but now that they've taken up arms, they have more power than the people they related with. So there is nothing they could do. They live in fear, really. And some of the terms of agreement they made with the criminals is that they would regularly come to town, to access all the social amenities that the residents also have access to. So imagine the sense of insecurity these people feel every time when they see this non-state actors come to their safe, what is supposed to be their safe zone, basically, and then they are exposed. And another worry is that what if these criminals don't stick to the terms of agreement? The guy told me they set up a monitoring committee on both sides to be able to monitor the terms, but can you really trust someone who perpetrates crimes at the end of the day? That's the big question.
That's Azizat Olaoluwa, DW's West African correspondent. Many thanks to you, Azizat. Bambara is the most widely spoken language in Mali, one of 13 official tongues in the West African country. Speaking is one thing, but reading and writing in that native tongue is rarely, if ever, done in the country's classrooms, where French, the colonial language, is dominant. Now, a startup is changing that.
These students in Bamako have been able to read and write for a while now. But today is the first time they're doing it in their mother tongue.
This is the first time. It's good. It helps me speak better with my friends. At school, we only speak French.
It's a shame. Bambara is our language and should be prioritized, but it isn't.
We speak Bambara in the streets every day, so learning it is important.
The Robot Mali organization has already developed more than 100 stories in local languages, from well-known Malian folktales to contemporary stories. For example, about war in the country.
Since the stories are also illustrated, it teaches them to make the connections between words and their meaning very quickly.
They also hope the books will combat illiteracy among Bambara speakers. There's help from writers and language experts, as well as artificial intelligence.
You
first have to formulate clearly what you want to say and think about the prompt that you're going to write.
AI programs are used to write, translate, and illustrate the stories.
It makes me proud to see my little brothers and sisters learning with so much joy.
The hope is that Bambara and other local languages will slowly but surely get their well-deserved place.
That's it for now. Be sure to check out our other stories on dw.com/Africa, or of course on social media at the handle @DW News. We also have plenty of stories from Africa on our YouTube channel. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.